the blue steel. Okay.
Did I put it right?
Yes. All right, and we're starting. Okay, so just tell me your name and what your position is here.
Okay. My name is Angelo Aslanidis, and I guess I'm a part owner. I've been here almost 44 years. And as far as position, we do everything. We don't have a position. Like, cut the steaks, we cook, we wash dishes, clean the floor, you name it, we do it.
Can you give me like a brief history of how y'all started?
Brief?
Yeah, it's a brief.
45 years. Well, my uncle and my father started this about late 68. And we got two restaurants downtown Colombia. And then they closed one and then moved it up here. So that's where we are now. And then my uncle had my father kept this one and my uncle kept that one downtown. But he subsequently closed it down in the mid 70s, late 70s. And then he opened a disco. So he went out of the restaurant business. But we stayed with it. So, and we're still with it. And I'm sure we're going to be with it for a long time because we have kids coming out. So they hopefully, they continue the tradition.
So are you the only owner of this right now?
We're partners with my brother Alex.
Okay. And so who started this originally?
Actually, my uncle did because we were just fresh in America, when we came to America in 1966 and we settled in Wisconsin. As my mom sold the sister, she brought us over here. And then we lived there for about a year. And then from there we moved to Iowa where my mother had a younger brother. And we was there for about 2 years. And then afterwards, we were speaking English. We just, fresh out of the boat,
Mm-hmm.
So we just followed him and then he moved to Colombia and that's how we ended up over
Right.
here. 1969.
So it's a full family?
Yeah, mother, father, and 4 siblings, 3 boys and a girl.
And cousins and everything?
My cousins came later on, but my uncle was here probably came in the mid-1950s.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was here, about 15 years before we came over here. So, and, he had 3 pizza houses, He was in the restaurant business all his life.
So, I can only imagine what it was like to just come to America and just start a business. So how was it?
For me, I was almost 14 years old. I mean, in that age, you really don't think about much. But I'm sure for my father, it was, big deal. Take your wife and yourself and 4 children, sell everything you got, which wasn't much, and come to a land where you never been before, and, and without knowing any language, without having any money. And it was like we were on uncharted waters, you just didn't know you're going to, And in the first couple of years, it was difficult, especially for my mother, because, back home, we come from a little village, we never had electricity, running water, it was just like a little village. But we had a good life. But we came over here, and, just my mom especially, because we went to school, my father worked, my mom stayed at home, just back home. And, in the evening, all the old ladies get around, they start drinking coffee, gossip, and she didn't have nobody here to do that, so she was very kind of depressed, so. And my father, I think he was thinking, like going back, but that was, we sold everything we had, so we couldn't go back, so. But I'm sure for him, it was a lot more difficult for us because we went to school, we made friends, so he just, now Alex, he probably didn't even know nothing because he was 2 years old, so. But I got a brother, he was 16, I was 14, and my sister was 8, and Alex was 2 years old. And we came with a boat. Big boat, but it was a boat. So.
The American dream.
Yes, and they brought us right through the Statue of Liberty, like in the crack up down.
How was that seeing that?
Yeah, and the biggest building we ever saw before we came over here is probably 5 stories high. And you come over here, you saw, the skyline of New York, it's wow. This is the world. This is out of the world, it's kind of. Because you see, now people know what's going on in the world because you got TVs. We never had TV, we didn't have electricity, so we did know nothing about the world, And people ask us that, before we left, where are you guys going? We said New York, because we didn't know any other cities, Actually, it was going to Manhattan, Wisconsin. So you just one of those things. So we did okay. We adjusted the old life.
Right. So you're saying like financially for your parents, how was it to keep a small business
It's we're I don't know, we're hard workers. There was time where you work like 6, 7 days a week, and it was like a family operated. I think maybe we had a couple of dishwashers, and the rest of us it was just family. Just I don't know. We believe in hard work pays off in the end. I mean, you're not gonna have instant success. A lot of people they think overnight or in a year or two. But like I said, we've been here 45 years, and we still work just as hard, not as many days. But so it's and I'm sure like my father's 83 years old. He's here every day. And people ask me, like I was 16 when I started here, and I'm 61. And people say, "Oh, you've been here forever. When are you gonna retire?" I said, seriously, my father's 83 years old, still working. I'm gonna retire. How's that gonna look? So
Exactly. So how is business going?
business is good. I mean, we every year, we're doing a little better, even with all the competition. So we was probably the first restaurant here. There was nothing here, and now we got a mega steakhouse across from us, and he didn't do anything but help us, because they're so busy. So we get a lot of especially the fish that was open. But we got a lot of customers that they're loyal. They might go try their places, but they always come from the roost. So it's and for that you develop good clientele. You gotta be in business for a long time. You just can't do it in a year or two because a lot of people don't even know you're here. In 2 years. So
So you were speaking about competition. So how was it when Growth House opened up and all these other?
well, that was the busiest year we ever had. Because that was so busy, because people were just excited, all this new big place gonna open up, and they did, and I mean that was busy, and people had to wait like 2 or 3 hours, and then they look across the plaza, they saw a little place, and hey, what is that over there? Let's go try that place, So it really was, and that was what it got. It's gonna be busy like that all the time. You gotta hire 2 or 3 more people, so so it's no, it's that's one thing. My father and we never worry about the competition. We just do whatever we did for the last 40 years, and they got us so far, and obviously it's something that people like. So we're not gonna change that because X Y Z can be, So it's something is the name.
So what does a typical day look like? Like a day in a restaurant?
Typical day, I usually come in like 9 o'clock. And I do some stuff over here, like put the potatoes in the oven, and then I go back and cut the meat for the day, whatever it is. It's usually maybe an hour or something like that. And then I come up here and we get a couple of coffee drinkers that come in every morning. We just, trying to solve the world's problem, politics and everything. And then, about 11 o'clock, that's when we open, and, people start coming in. So, like I said, we don't have a certain position, we just do whatever we have to do, it's, yeah, but then you mean the cook, I cook it. Then you mean to do the register, I do that. If the busboy, decides, oh, I'm sick today, and I gotta go wash dishes, we don't have any set, like a position. That's us. The girls, the waitresses, they know what they gotta do. The busboys, dishwashers, they know what they gotta do. But we, like freelancers, we do everything. So that's my English.
I'm understanding everything you're
Okay,
saying.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, I understand everything you're saying. Don't even worry about it. So, why do you think other small businesses don't do so well in Colombia?
I don't know. You know, there's a misconception about restaurants that people they think, oh, I'm gonna be a millionaire, I'm gonna open a restaurant. That's restaurants actually. It's got the biggest failure rate in any other business because that's the mentality that they think, like I said, I'm going to open a restaurant for 2 or 3 years and I just kind of make all the money in the world. Like, can I give you an example? This guy used to come in here all the time. I assume he was probably 55, 60 years old, about 10 years ago. And he came over here on a time to me one day. He wanted to open a restaurant. And I said, well, I've been some trade a little time over here. And I said, he asked me, how do you go about it? So I told him everything I know about it. And then I finally said, like I said, he looked like he's 60 years old. I said, John, what did you do? I mean, you're not scripted. He goes, well, my wife and I, we have some, like a business where we did lay tile and, like a linoleum and stuff like that. I said, how was business? He goes, oh, we're busy, he says. why you give it up? He goes, well, it was taking up too much of our time. And I said, you're gonna go in the restaurant business? Well, you're barking up the wrong tree, you know. That's what I'm saying, you know. It's a lot more to it than when you come in a restaurant and you, because, you know, you open at 11 o'clock, you gotta come in 2 hours before you open, you know, because there's a lot of effort, you know what I mean? You put potatoes in yam, it's gotta take 2 hours, you know, what's gonna do that for you? And then, you know, it's like I said, cutting meat and doing this and that, you know. But in a lot of people, you know, they don't see that. And once they get in the business, oh, I gotta do all that. You know what I'm saying? And then, and that's the easy part. And then, you know, they think, oh, I'm just gonna work 8 hours a day. No, you're not. You're gonna marry to the business, you know. And you just, you know, I guess that's what makes us successful because we understood, you know, it takes too much. So, and you gotta cater, you know. You gotta be adaptive too because we have 4 items. We got an old menu where there's 4 items there. Now we probably got over 100 items. You know, you gotta be adaptive and, you know, kind of listen to customers, see what you know, they want. You know, like I remember a long time ago, this couple used to come in and she asked us, "Hey, did you guys have like this day importance Worcestershire sauce?" I says, "No." She says, "Well, we're not gonna come and eat it again if you guys don't get it." I said, "Oh." So I told my father, "So he bought a box of it, you know." So you know, you gotta listen to your customers. A lot of people, you know, say, "I'm not gonna buy it just because somebody mentioned it," you know. But you just want to listen, so you gotta listen to the customers, you know, because especially nowadays. Because back then, you could get away with it because there wasn't much competition. But now, well, you know, every block, you know, you got a couple of restaurants, you know. So it's a tough business.
So, have you had the opportunity to sell your business to like Pittsburgh, or
No.
have you always had it as Pittsburgh?
I mean, there's nothing to sell here. I mean, we rent this place. You see, I mean, the only thing we got is the furniture in here, like refrigerators, and you know, it's. But we probably paid for it 10 times over the years with the rent, you know. But nobody's gonna buy, you know, like a business like this because if they're smart, because they know what it takes. It's not, you know, just because we've been successful doesn't mean somebody's gonna come in and buy. It's gonna be successful, you know, because you know it was like a situation in Mexico, Missouri, where there was a G&D Steakhouse, where my father opened it. And after 30 years, the guy that ran it was a Greek guy, and he got killed, you know, like they robbed him and killed him. And then his family sold it to this other guy. You know, he might have a better food, I don't know, but he could survive because, you know, people went to see gossip over there and fed. You know, just one of those things. Because not only you gotta have a good food, you gotta be likable with the customers, you know, they're gonna feel comfortable coming to the place, you know. But, you know, calling them by name, you know, even though a lot of times we screw up the names, you know, so I've been calling this guy Jim for 30 years, finally I find out his name was Richard, you know. So, so so I called him Richard the next time and he got mad at me. He said, "My name is not Richard, it's Jim." I said, "Okay."
So, what do you want customers to experience when they come into?
Well, you know, I want them to be comfortable. I mean, I hope, you're not going to satisfy everybody. You know, you got to put that in your mind. But, you know, you do the best you can and you want that, you know, obviously we don't have no atmosphere here, you know, but if you're on the atmosphere, you got to go to, Texas Roadhouse, you know. But if you want a good meal for a reasonable price, you can do G&D. But this is a place to go, you know. So, because I remember this lady came one day, my wife, and they were sitting over there. She came with her husband, it was like 5 years out. And she kind of, meandering around, you know, and her husband, the one that got a tray, he didn't know what to do. And the lady looked at us and she goes, "Look, that's the owners?" I said, "Well, yeah, kind of, this is a family business, and, we all owners here." So she says, "I've never been here before. We're from Florida." But my husband said that you guys don't have much atmosphere, but you got good food. So I thought, well, great, we got at least 50% something, So,
Right. That's good. At least
well,
you happy.
exactly. So, if I was gonna go somewhere, I would rather have a lousy meal in a good atmosphere, or vice versa. Obviously, I would have a good, better meal, right? Sure. So,
So, what is the future for G&D? Where do you see business?
I hopefully, like I'm 61 years old. I don't know how much longer I'm going. Like I said, as long as my father's here, I'm not going anywhere. If he ever decides to retire, and I don't think he will ever will, I'll probably take a long vacation. Well deserving too. So I don't know. Hopefully, this is my son Michael. You met him yesterday, and that's my brother. Alex, like 11 years younger than I am. And hopefully, they'll carry on the tradition and the legacy. So if it's kind of sad, they close them down. You know, I mean, it's I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not gonna be around to see that. I hope I die before because you see, we got like we have so many high school activities in town, and we like FFA is the biggest group we got. It's in April sometimes, and a lot of the students, I mean the teachers, they've been coming here for almost 40 years, 35. I remember them when they were students. Now the teachers, most of them, and they bring the students. So it's kind of tradition for them. And I mean, we'll have probably the restaurant full will be about 120 people, waiting in here, and 2 or 3 buses outside waiting because it's just like a tradition for them. Because, what else the guy said a few years back, he brought about 30 kids, in here, and he was, you guys, says, if you get graduated from high school, if you guys get married or even come to Colombia, if you don't go to G&D, you're going to go straight to hell when you die. So you're just like, I don't know, sometimes if maybe the food is not as good, to them it's like a tradition. It's just like, overrides everything sometimes. So, just like you're probably going to start coming over here in
yeah,
right?
We'll definitely see
Sure,
me.
there you go.
So, is there anything that you want to say or that I can ask or anything you want to mention?
I don't know. I mean, you're going to ask for my marital status, how many kids I got, if I got grandkids. I've been married 39 years. Yeah, we came, like I said, we came from Greece in 1966. And went back when I was in 1975. I was 22 years old. And then I met my wife on one Sunday. We got married the following Sunday. Yeah. So, and that was 39 years ago. Then I got 2 sons and 2 grandkids, Brenda and my grandson. So, and all is good so far. As far as health and everything, we're all doing, we're good. So.
That's all I got. So that was easy. See, that wasn't too terrible.
Can I just go do my work now?
Yes, you should go do your
See,
workout.
actually, I work Sundays till 3 o'clock, but I need to go today because
How are you? How are you?
I saw it by